Hello everyone, and I wish you a warm welcome to our next and last webinar for DxO PhotoLab in this year. Welcome to new features in DxO PhotoLab. So first, if you have any problems with a bad image or sound quality, please turn off any other advice that uses your bandwidth. For your information, this is a live webinar, so in the first part I will guide you tonight through our new parts of DxO PhotoLab, most likely the local location adjustments. And for the people who don't know the company DxO, it has been founded in 2003. It's got headquarters in Paris and San Francisco. And DxO is not only producing the software DxO PhotoLab. They have a lot of ambient technologies in use by the world's leading camera and smartphone companies. It's producing the DxO One. And let me introduce myself. I'm Jochen Kohl. I'm a German-based photographer, so sorry I'm not a native speaker. I've got a 180 square meter studio here in Wuppertal, close to Düsseldorf. We're doing a lot of commercial work, and one of my most used raw converters is DxO PhotoLab now. So, just a couple of weeks ago, DxO Optics Pro became DxO PhotoLab, and a lot of people thinking, what is new? And there are pretty nice new things now in DxO PhotoLab, and most likely it's what everybody was waiting for. We were getting local adjustments to our software, so we are able to get more creativity in our workflow. We get in the opportunity to have simple parts of the image being edited, but it's not the only new improvement we have in our software. What we got too is our new repair tool. So our dust remover became our repair tool, and it now really works really good. We can see it here on an image like this, where the dust tool had slightly problems. We removed on this image a lot of small hairs, as you can see, and it works easy by just setting the size of your repair tool a little bit larger than the part you want to have to be removed, paint over it, and it's getting back into it. If you do it on an image with a lot of corrections, as we've shown here, it works really great on the skin. This is our image after the editing, and here you can see we simply really picked out every little skin problems we had here and could remove them with our nice tool. I'll show it you here again. Simply paint over a part which you do not like in the image, and it's been removed. This of course takes a while, so we won't get into so deep into this part of the software. The other thing we improved is our part of lens softness, the part which is sharpening the images using our optical modules. Here you will see improvements. You will see improvements with the software is getting faster. Of course, Prime works now faster too, but all of you are waiting for the local adjustments, and let's see what we got new and how it has been working. I will work tonight on a Mac, so what you see here is our interface on the Mac OS. For the Windows user, it will look a little bit different. I've got a new mask sign here, as you can see, by right-clicking on my mouse. It's open the options for the local adjustments, like the brush, graduate filters, control point, auto mask, the eraser. I can create here new masks too, and I can do a reset. If you choose the tool, a question mark shows up in the middle. And by pressing on this, you got all the shortcuts showing up, and of course the brush settings too. On a window screen, it looks like this. So do not get confused. You got your settings for your brushes. On the top, you're missing the new mask button, so you have to create a new mask simply by right-clicking the mouse. But let us get back to how local adjustments working. We've got here a nice gray picture, and what we will do is see how each of our tools are working. We got here the brush set at first, and you get adjustments for the brush. It's the size, the feather, the flow, and the opacity. If I, for example, starting with the size, and we set in it here, feathering down to 0, so it's a hard brush. After making the first adjustment to the picture, our equalizer shows up. Here you get the controls of your local adjustment: exposure, contrast, macro contrast, clear view, vibrancy, saturation. Here we got our white balance tools, temperature and toning. They're now grayed out because we're on a TIFF file. These settings are only available using a raw file. Sharpness and blur. To see how a brush looks, we're going down and reducing the exposure. If you have this equalizer here, simply press the letter E on your keyboard and it's disappearing. You see it on our shortcuts here as well. So if I'm now changing the feathering of the brush, closing brush here, and doing the same move, you see what happens. The feathering goes to the outside, so the brush enlarges a bit. The center of the brush is still the same than we had before because we haven't changed the size. It's feathering to the outside. What we get to is flow and opacity. We start with opacity, for example, first. If you set it on 50% and you brush once, you got the effect with 50%. If you brush once and keep on painting all the time without taking the brush off, it still stays on 50%. If you now paint in again, it's coming back up with another 49%. With flow, for example, you do one size and it says it goes up to opacity and it's 17%. If you then start painting all at one time, this is editing the opacity with the flow without taking the brush off. And then of course you can do a setting like you want a maximum opacity of 62 and brushing with really little flow in there. We got the first line you see, and then if you go here, paint here a little bit more in, here a bit more in. You can have completely controls over your brush. In the mask, the eraser has exactly the same settings. So if you set the feather on 0, full flow, full opacity, and you erase something out, it looks like that. If you give the feathering 100%, it goes here. If you take the opacity down and let the flow, it takes you 50% off. And if you're starting the other way around, for example, the flow really reduced, and you're going once through, it's just a bit nearly visible. And if you start painting a bit more, it goes up to 100%. So these are the settings and the functions for our brushes. The next tool we got is the graduate filter. As you can see, I can turn him and move him and use the slider all the way I want to. And this part here now, it's the full 100% of our filter, and this is the part where it goes down to 0%, where it's graduate. You see, we can make it shorter, have it wider, and here we got the same settings from exposure to blur we had with our brush. And you see, this is more of the simple tools. I mean, this is nearly quite simple, self-explaining. Where it comes a little more getting into the deep are our points. People knowing which are familiar with the Nik software, we now have the viewpoint technology from Nik here at DxO PhotoLab. So back go on the new mask, change to control point. And when I set a point, I can change size of my point. And when I do now start making my adjustments, you see what's happening. It's only controlling the blue. The other squares are not affected. This is because the viewpoint technology picks up the color tone right on the middle. And it's only affecting colors you picked up here in the middle. If you see it, it jumps slowly on the gray. It's affecting the gray and not the blue anymore. Move slowly into the red square and the effect is shown on the red. So if we remind this later when we're doing our adjustment to a real picture, it's really, really important where we are setting a point. If we're not choosing a new mask, we can set new points with the same settings we had once chosen in this equalizer. So you can see I got now 4 points which are controlled with one equalizer. If I want to get something removed or not being affected, I got this negative or this point which is like the eraser for the viewpoint. You see this one then make sure that this part is not affected by the adjustments I have chosen in my equalizer. This is how viewpoint works. And the last of our tools is the auto mask. The auto mask it's a brush which recognizes where the color area ends and then the effect, as you see here, is only been used on the red square. The big difference is if you've seen before when I moved the viewpoint, the effect can change a little bit. With the auto mask, it's only being affected by the part I've painted it in. So do not forget, if you have any questions, just place your questions in the message board of the GoToWebinar control panel, and I will answer them after my guidance through the software. There are images which are working really, really great for the viewpoint and other images working better for the brushes. A really good example for how you can control all the local adjustments simply with the viewpoint is an image like that. This is the image not being edited at all. Up to now you can see it. There's no reset. If we close and go into the compare tool, all now happens is smart lighting. We can switch this off if we want to, and then it's only the optical corrections like vignetting and the lens sharpness and the distortion of the lens which being corrected now. So we're starting with this image, for example, with a complete new mask, and only use viewpoint for editing this picture. We're going to the viewpoint technology and starting with our main part, little boat here, lifting up the color a little bit. And micro contrast is a tool which is getting details out really good. And then you see the dirt and distraction on the white comes out straight away. So we can use it the other way around in this case to get a nicer and cleaner part of the white without affecting our control. Setting a next control point with the same editings on this white part of the put. We are keeping the natural light effects, this gradient we had captured with the image, but the effect now is the same on this. We jump in on the other side. I do not want to have the same controls, the same amount of settings used on the other white part. So I'm getting up a new mask and have the settings here a little less much controlled like on here. And as you see the first part, if you press the compare or the D button at local adjustments, you only see the local adjustments being removed, and you see what happened to now the local adjustments. This part is affected by our adjustments here, so I can use the protection viewpoint and set it here so it keeps a natural look of the water. Coming to a new mask, we're going on the water parts. This one we might have a little bit lighter. Here we want details in, using micro contrast and clear view, for example. And now picking with our viewpoints only these colors out. And getting this part affected. And if I now would by accident move one of these points here into the white, you see it's catching up the different color. Here's more white here, we have the green and blue tones. So always watch carefully where you place your viewpoint. We're hurrying up a little bit and seeing here, maybe we want to have some more details in here. Little nice micro contrast coming up. And in this area, this one actually got not much light. We want to bring this up a bit. We're staying on the viewpoints, setting them a little bit smaller here. Don't have to be so large. Rather set a third one in here. Having it up here. We want maybe this a little bit warmer, so we can use now different parts of our area, setting a new mask, staying on the control points, changing only in this tone, not so much, a little bit the white balance and the exposure. This can be bigger because we do not have so much of the color here. And we've added the picture really quickly only by using our viewpoints. So came out like this, and with the viewpoint technology, we changed to here. If you now think that the viewpoint is the ultimate tool to edit everything, you're not right, because what we saw here was the advantage of viewpoint technology, that it's recognized or with the color being kept, and you only have to set, for example, one point like we did here, and we got all the little copied points being part of this mask. It doesn't work with every image. If, for example, jumping to this one, and on the first view, we might think this is all the same color. So if we here start and you see there's no local adjustments activated at the moment, we're starting here with a new mask, staying on the control point viewpoint technology and setting it up. See, it's not really working when you darken it up really well. If you move it, because there's so much different colors in the wall, the effect is really, really hard to set. So here we come in now to different tools. Better we use brushes, graduate filters for an image like that. And they're working, of course, as easy as this is. If we look at the image first, what we see is the main part of the image should be this tram 28. It's from Lisbon. But the foreground of the image is much too light. So we don't really look at the main point of the image. We have been irritated by the light part in front, too much yellow on the sides. So we might start with a new mask, going to a brush, set him on the size we want to affect, and get the feathering really, really big. So it's maybe 85.